pre-retirement rules that some believe are outdated and you should not be applying to your plan. John is here to explain those to us. I'm Heather Branch, here with John Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital, to ask for some ideas on ways that we can do better with our money. Now that we're getting to retirement, it's time for us to take that money, make it work hard for us, because we're done working hard, John, by God.
Take this job and shove it. That's an old song.
That's an old song, but it goes way back, our work efforts, because this whole conversation stems from, there's this website. The website is called thetop10.com, and it is just one top 10 list after another, just just all these different kinds of, it's a great, if you need like a brain break and you're looking for some funny things to laugh at, it's a good website to check out. One of the posts was the top things that we learned in school that are now totally useless. Number one on this list, learning how to play the recorder. I think that's just rude. I mean, hot cross buns, like, show some respect.
My kids, I remember, so I have a fifth grader. And so I think it was last year, the year before, maybe it's third grade. And she had the recorder. And I asked her the other day, I was like, can you play any of that? And she's like, absolutely not. No, I mean, maybe a kazoo. The recorder, it does nothing for her at all. She can't do any of it. No.
Other things on the list, memorizing the periodic table. Or the first 25 numbers of pi, as in PI, not the pie you eat. You're a math nerd, so you probably
3.147, I don't remember all of it anymore. I mean, literally, the calculator does it pretty quickly.
Then there are other things on this list, like long division, long multiplication, writing cursive. And I'm like, I get why some people find that useless just because of technology.
Sure.
But I still think having some basic life skills is a good thing in life.
One of the things we were working on with the little one, just to make sure she understood, is like we forced her to do it, 2 years ago when she was in third grade, memorize the multiplication tables from 1 through 12.
Yeah.
Not complicated, but she is so much faster at so many of the other kids just because she memorized that. And I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes 7 times 8 and 6 times 7, I get those like 42, 56.
You have to pause for a second.
I have to pause for a quick second. I'm like, man, But last year when we were going over it with her again, and we do it during the summer sporadically, I was like, man, see, it's good. It just keeps you sharp.
It's like playing those crossword puzzles on your phone rather than just doom scrolling. It's good for the mind, keeps you sharp.
Absolutely.
Now, when we get to retirement, and we hope to be doing more things like, puzzles, spending time with their grandkids, that kind of thing. Let's talk about the outdated retirement rules that are still around, that many people still abide by, John, but that you believe are defunct and we should not be applying to our plan.
Yeah, when it comes to retirement, a lot of people still, they hear things and they read things that have been basically archaic for a long period of time. I'm going to hit the big three today because, again, it's not because they're so disastrous. It's just that for some people, they could really cause them to make some really poorly done missteps. So the first one is the 4% rule. So in the 1990s, there was some guru that came out and said the 4% rule, you take 4% of your savings annually, adjust that for inflation, and you should be good during retirement. Well, here's the problem. He did not have enough years. Back in the 1990s, people weren't lasting to nearly 100 years old. And so because of that, it was only based on 30 years of retirement. But we typically, daily, we see people and our clients that they retire in their 60s at, like, say, 62. And 30 years is not enough, especially if they have a younger spouse. So we need the money to last for longer. 40 years is more appropriate. And frankly, I don't think that 4% is a very good number in general. When you look at the math, we have clients all the time. They're like, John, should I pull out 4%? They can pull out 20% in some years. So the question is, do you just want to be the richest person in the graveyard, or do you want to spend the money that you're capable of spending basing on your needs? So the 4% rule is a rule of thumb. I think it's good just to get an idea in your mind. What should you spend? Because in the beginning, it also is pretty similar to your RMDs when you get to 73, right? But for the rest of us, I have seen it be disastrous if they're trying to pull money out and we had a major market meltdown. We haven't seen one in a while. 2022 wasn't very good, but 2008 put a lot of people, kicked them square in the keister, and it took them a long time to get back.
Also, because 2008, the effects lasted longer, right? Like, I feel like the ones we've seen since then have been short spurts. We've recovered very fast. We haven't had to endure for many years.
Exactly. When you look at 2022, it was after COVID, but it was basically because interest rates moved up. 2008 was an actual major recession. And so it took nearly 6 years just to get back to even, at that period of time. If you were pulling money out after you retired retired in, let's say in 2007, and you had that huge hit of nearly 40% in 2008, you are so far underwater. If you're pulling 4 or 5% out a year, guys,
Yeah.
it would have been so uncomfortable. You probably would have jumped out of that plan and you may never have gotten back. So the whole idea is you want to build a different style of income system by using buckets, where we have money that we know that we're going to use for income for at least the next 2 years. Then we have a middle bucket that's built to create income for the next 10 to 20 years. And then you have your growth bucket. And that can be anything you want. It could be exotic and growth or aggressive oriented, or it could be conservative, depending on your risk tolerance. But if you do a bucketing approach to income as opposed to a 4% rule, your chances of success go through the roof. It's stratospheric in how much better you can accomplish your goals. And frankly, spend more money if you've made more money. That's the big thing for me.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just either retire earlier or spend more money because you got it? All right. So the 4% rule is a big one. The second one I want to talk about is arbitrary retirement numbers, where people say you have to have $1 million or you have to have 2 million, or Forbes does a study and they say 2.7 million is what you have to have. Guys, that to me is 100% arbitrary and garbage. I have clients that have $500,000 of liquid money and they live better than clients that have saved 2 million. They're like, how on earth is that the case? Well, they get pensions. They invested in real estate and they get income every single month that comes in. And so they have a much more comfort level because they know that every single month, cha-ching, there's going to be money deposited to their account, and they can spend that money because the very next month, guess what's going to happen? Cha-ching, they get another check in their account. It's very different. So you do not have to have an arbitrary number like 1 million or 2 million or 3 million. What you have to do is proper math. What does it really cost you to sustain your standard of living in retirement? When you're working, if someone says, well, we've been making $90,000 a year, I'm like, do you like the way that feels? Well, then let's try to keep you on $90,000 a year, and let's knock out a couple small things: travel costs, things like that, work associated expenses you wouldn't have had. But then you have to replace those with travel more, hang out with the grandkids more. Probably, even though everyone says, well, I'm going to cook at home more often, what typically happens is for your own social network, people go out to dinner more often, right? So you want to make sure you're adding and subtracting the right types of expenses for retirement. So I don't like arbitrary numbers. The point is that if you can retire comfortably off $65,000 a year, let's find out what the least amount you have to ensure that 65 grand a year and grow with inflation, and then you can retire then. It doesn't have to worry about an arbitrary number. So that second one is a big one, is basically the myths. Now here's the third one. The third one goes almost completely against Dave Ramsey's tutelage, if you will. Dave Ramsey does a remarkably good job in teaching people to not overspend. I think that's great. I think being debt-free, especially when it comes to revolving debt and things like that, is important for many people. But the richest people in the world utilize leverage correctly. And so I do not think you have to be debt-free going into retirement. As a matter of fact, I think some debts are genius if you've done things correctly. If you're only going to pay 2.5% or 3% on a mortgage, and you can actually earn 4 or 5% in guaranteed government treasuries, then guys, I think that's a pretty good idea. That's called making money OPM, off of other people's money. It's arbitrage. So that is how billionaires get to be billionaires. If you look at a billionaire's balance sheet, they may have $1 billion in assets, but they may have another $600 million or more in debt. Why? Because they're utilizing other people's money to compound their returns. Now, this does not mean go out there and throw all caution to the wind and load up on debt. No. But some debt is good debt, right? So some debt is good, so you do not have to come out of cash at an inappropriate time. Give a perfect case example. A lot of folks say, hey, John, I'm retired. I really don't want a car payment. I'm going to take $85,000 out and buy a new Cadillac. And every single time I just ask, how long did it take you to save $85,000? And they would say, well, I put around 15 grand in a year in my 401k. I'm like, right. So let's do the math. It took you 6 years to save that $85,000. Now, what is the interest rate that Cadillac is willing to give you, or your credit union or your bank? And they'll say, well, right now I can get one for like 3.5%. I'm like, whoa. That sounds kind of remarkably smart, doesn't it? Because we can get a CD paying better than 3.5%. You can keep your money in your account and have that investment pay for the car. Now, that is just one case example, because most people think, well, I've got $1 million, John. What is 85 grand? Well, in the front end of retirement, it's a ton of money. in some situations, especially if we
Yeah.
have a downturn, right? So
Yeah.
those are some things to think about. So number one, make sure that the 4% rule is really not how you're applying your numbers. Number two, you don't have to have some arbitrary number. Be certain that you know what your math is. And the third one, I think that OPM, other people's money, using leverage, not being completely debt free sometimes, is remarkably smart. Those are the three things that if we just toss those out, a lot of people would have better looking math when it comes to the retirement futures.
What outdated rules do not apply to your plan that you might accidentally be applying because, I don't know, you heard them. Seems like a good idea. I mean, all of these sound like good things, John. 4% withdrawal a year. Don't have debt. Have a specific amount saved before I retire. It all sounds like a good idea, but it goes back to the bigger rule. Maybe the ultimate, the Quan rule is have a plan that's customized to you and your goals so you truly understand how these rules do or do
That's
not
it.
apply.
And often these rules were made up to more easily explain to someone a complex concept, right? It's like, hey, well, if you just take 4% out, the problem is that anymore, especially in a market downturn, that can blow you up. You can actually get underwater and never be able to catch back up. And then you commit the one thing everyone's worried about, running out of money. So those things are big. I think the debt conversation is very interesting because it's really psychology. It's really just making sure we understand, hey, if I'm not going to have a paycheck anymore, how do I make this payment? It's like your investments are making the payment for you, right? Whether it's a car, and that's a depreciating asset. That's not my favorite one, but a lake house or a condo in Florida or something like that. Those I think are better uses of leverage. I don't typically like asset that depreciate, but still the concept is similar. Using leverage correctly is wise.
RetirementSolutionShow.com is our website where you can go to start conversations with John and his team about these rules that you hear. So many of them they are blanket advice. They start with a good idea, but does it really apply to you and your savings is why John and his team do what they do. They work to show you how things can work for you, ways you might be able to do better, and put it all together in a plan. We've also got links posted in the show notes, so you can just click there. Let's start helping you understand the rules that do apply for you. RetirementSolutionShow.com.